Okay, so y'all know my DMs are filled every single day of my life with boutique owners asking me tons of questions. And between the questions about how to make consistent sales and how to improve marketing, high up on the list these days is how do I get rid of my old inventory? I've talked to so many people who literally have no idea how much money is tied up in the inventory. And a big problem is not just that they don't know how much money is tied up in the inventory, but they're convincing themselves that they need a plan to sell all of that inventory. First things first, you need to know what your cost of goods is. Your cost of goods is how much you spent on that inventory. At a minimum, that should be the number that you're striving to hit, not I need to sell all my old inventory. Personally speaking, I worked in retail for over 11 years before I started my boutique. And one thing that I can confidently tell you is that none of the retailers I've ever worked with had a plan or a goal to sell all of their inventory at full price. Let's start there. So when a business is planning their inventory, because they plan it, they don't just randomly select what they're going to sell. When they're planning their inventory, and more specifically, when they're planning their sales, like revenue wise, they are also saying to themselves, what percentage of this inventory do we think we're going to sell at full price? And what percentage of this inventory do we think we're going to sell at a discount? So that right there is a element of where people are going wrong. They've convinced themselves that if they're not selling all of their inventory, that means that something's wrong. That does not mean something's wrong. It means that that's the average thing that happens in retail. So when you shop for products, let's say you start with 12 pieces, there is a report inside of Shopify. It's called your sell-through rate. This particular report is going to tell you the percentage of your inventory that you sold through in a specific window of time. So let's say you drop 12 pieces of inventory today, and let's say you look at those numbers 30 days from now, and it says that you sold 65% of that particular item. That means that it took you 30 days to sell an average of 65% of that inventory. How do you use that information moving forward? Well, first things first, I would say you want to look at the other inventory that you also sold during that period of time. Is the sell-through rate pretty consistent across the board? Did you start with the same amount of inventory? Were there certain things where you started with double the amount or half of the amount? You want to be able to look at that because it's going to give you a really good indication of how quickly or slowly you're selling through your inventory. So let's say you realize that you're averaging about 60 to 65% of, sell through rate for your inventory in a 30-day window of time. Cool. From there, you can say to yourself, okay, I anticipate that every time we get new inventory, I'm probably going to sell 65% of it at full price in 30 days. What you're also going to tell yourself is, I'm probably going to have 35% of it left over that may need to be discounted, that may need to have a special promotion, that may need to be marked down and put into my clearance section. So this leads me into inventory management. First things first, we have to know what our revenue goals are, and your inventory decisions are going to support your ability to make the revenue that you want, right? So let me try to explain this to you in simple terms. When I worked at Saks Fifth Avenue, I worked in the women's contemporary department, and the store as a whole had a revenue goal. However, each department had to contribute, wow, can't talk. Each department had to contribute a specific percentage to the store's overall sales. Your business is no different. So when you look at your sales history, one of the things you want to be able to clearly identify is what percentage of your inventory is coming from the individual categories within your business. So what percentage is coming from dresses? What percentage is coming from tops? What percentage is coming from bottoms? So on and so forth. Having that information is going to help you to plan your inventory. So when you go to a fashion district, or you log on to Fashion Go, or you go to a trade show, essentially you can create a buying plan where you know that 40% of my budget is going to go here, 30% is going to go here, so on and so forth. Not necessarily because you want to spend there, but more so to say, like, I have already planned how much money I want to make. Let's say you want to make $100,000 in whatever period of time. If you know that 40% of your sales is coming from dresses, that means that $40,000 needs to be made from dresses. So when you're shopping, you're not just selecting products, you also want to be doing the math of, if it costs this much and I'm going to give it this profit margin, what's the retail value is going to be? What is the retail value going to be? Every dress that you select has a cost, but you also want to think about the retail price that you're going to sell it at, because the retail price is what's going to be taken into consideration to clarify whether or not you're going to be able to make $40,000 from dresses. If you don't buy $40,000 or don't have $40,000 worth of dresses in your possession at some point, you're not going to be able to make that $40,000 you need to make from the dresses, right? So we have inventory planning on one hand, but we also need to manage that inventory. What you don't want to happen is you have literally $40,000 worth of dresses. Reason being is because all of those dresses are not going to get sold at regular price. A percentage of them are going to get sold at regular price. A percentage of them are going to be sold at a discount. Managing your inventory looks like keeping track. Am I on track to make the money that I desire to make from this particular category within my business? Am I selling it fast enough? Am I selling it too slow? Has it been 30 days and we're not hitting that 65% sell-through rate that we are shooting for? Okay, cool. Let's mark it down. Because guess what? Every single item has what's called a profit margin. Profit margin is the percentage of your revenue that will be profits in a sale. So let's say you have a 70% profit margin on a piece of merchandise. That means that you have a range of 70% that you can discount. Let me put that in simple terms. If you were to offer 70% off of that item, that would mean you're breaking even. You've basically dismantled your profit and you're just saying, I want to make my money back. If you mark it down to 30% off, you still have that 40% margin. Hopefully I'm making sense. So people will make the mistake of holding on to the old inventory way too long. Number one, because they don't have a sales plan, which means they typically don't have an inventory plan, which also means they don't have an inventory management plan, which means that they're going to hold on to old inventory way longer than they need to because they're not thinking about the bigger goal, which is to make sure that they hit their revenue goals. You can hit your revenue goals. You can also still be profitable while also discounting things that need to be discounted. So my point is that all of these stores that I've worked at in the 11 years that I worked in retail, all of them obviously brought in regular new merchandise, but they also did markdowns. They also had a clearance section. They also regularly discounted things when and if they were not moving. I see way too many small business owners or boutique owners in particular who put themselves out of business. I know that, the economy is doing what the economy is doing. The pandemic, everybody had all this extra money and whatnot. All of that aside, most boutique owners put themselves out of business because they never learned the business. You do not just have a fashion business, my friend. I've seen so many people say, oh, I have a clothing business. I have a fashion business. Yes, but no. You actually, in fact, have a retail business. And if you've never worked in retail, you've never worked in a higher up position in retail, never been in charge of inventory planning, inventory management, buying, pricing, so on and so forth, there's a list of things that you should prioritize learning because they're going to play a huge role in your ability to actually grow that business. I hope y'all can feel how passionate I am about this because these are the things that I talk about every day of my life inside my programs, in my coaching calls and things like that, because I am so saddened by the number of people who decide to go out of business. And here's the kicker, y'all. If you just talk to somebody who understands the industry, they could get you out of that fast. Again, going back to all the different places that I've worked, every business has this one singular thing in common. No business can control whether or not somebody pulls their wallet out to buy. Doesn't matter how long that business has been intact or been running. None of us can control whether or not somebody's going to pull their credit card out. What we can control is what we choose to do with our inventory. So yes, our goal may be to sell it at full price, Sure, you went all out, did a photo shoot, and you got your website graphics done and all that. Simply put, everything doesn't play out the way that we wanted it to. The best thing that you can do is always be willing, able, and ready to pivot, because that is what being in business is about, especially in this industry. Your inventory is your cash. And in order for you to be able to pay yourself and for you to be able to sustain that business and stay in business, you're going to need to manage your inventory well. You're going to have to prioritize cash flow over everything else. Of course, we want to create a profitable business, but if there's no cash flow, why are we talking about profit at the end of the day? Again, so many people ask me or tell me, I don't run sales or offer discounts because I don't want to devalue my business. I don't want people to become overly reliant on discounts. And I always say to them, number one, just because you choose to offer a discount or, mark something down, it doesn't mean that everybody needs to receive that announcement. People have psyched themselves into being overly reliant on social media, and they think everything needs to be said on social media. I discount things all the time in secret for a specific group of people on my list. Not to dig too deeply into email marketing, but I'll just give you a plain and simple example. I'm sure at some point you've received an email from a brand and it said, because you bought this, we thought you might like that. They segmented all the people who bought that thing that they saw that you liked or that you bought. They segmented all of y'all out, put you into one singular group together, and then sent out a mass email to you in particular to suggest an additional product to you based off of your purchase history. Let's say that let me think. Let's say you bought a skin serum of some sort, and let's say that brand had a moisturizer that they really wanted to get rid of. Let's say that they dropped that moisturizer with the intention for people to buy the serum and the moisturizer together, but the moisturizer is not selling. They could literally say, okay, let's go segment out everybody that bought that serum, and for the next 48 hours, we're going to offer just the people who bought the serum 25% off, or we're going to let them get the moisturizer for $20 instead of $40 today, right? Nobody else on your list has to know that this thing got discounted. So it never has to be a case of the brand being devalued or people thinking less of your business because of the discounts, because they don't even have to know about the discounts. Like I was just telling my students in our coaching call last night, there have been times where we actually created one last night. I might create a segment and that segment has 5 people in it. 5 people is better than 0. So I might send an email to just those 5 people. Let's say they're my best customers. They're the most likely to spend $200. If I can get all 5 of them to spend their typical $200, that's $1,000. Even if it's at a discount, that's $1,000. I'm not mad at that, right? So going back to the bigger point of this video, very impromptu because I was getting ready to get up from my desk and I said, you know what? Somebody else has just said to me, I need to get rid of this old inventory and we must talk about it. Hear me, friends. Hear me clearly. Your inventory is your cash, okay? I always say, when I'm looking at my old inventory, I just see dollar signs. I don't look at quantities of things. I mentioned earlier that the biggest mistake you can make is psyching yourself into believing that you need to sell all of your inventory. When I decided to rebrand my business last year and I was like, I'm not buying any more new inventory, the very first thing that I did was log into Shopify, find my cost of goods, because I needed to know, first things first, how much money I needed to make back. I think when I decided to rebrand at the time, I maybe had like $18,000 in cost of goods, meaning that's how much money I spent on that inventory. I said, cool. First things first, I am prioritizing making that $18,000 back. And I did that. Now that I can see what's left over, we will create a plan for what to do with that, whether that be discounts, promotions, bundles, so mark it down, so on and so forth. We'll figure that out when we get there. Right now, I'm prioritizing making my $18,000 back. But you would only be able to see how much your inventory is worth if you're actually putting in your cost of goods when you're inputting a product. So on your website, in the back end, because I always say the money is made on the back end. When you don't have the back end cleaned up, the front end don't matter at the end of the day. So on the back end, you want to make sure you go in there and add in your cost of goods for all of that merchandise. Even if you're the type of person that's scared of talking about money and you don't want to face the realities, you need to face the realities. Otherwise, you're going to put yourself out of business, okay? So put those costs in, look at the comparison of cost to retail value so that you can know how much that inventory is worth, and then sit down and create a plan for moving it. Some things can get sold at full price. You can literally take some fresh pictures, create some fresh content, spend a week just promoting super heavily the things that you don't want to discount. All the other things, create a promotional plan. What needs to get marked down to 25% off? What can get marked down to 20 bucks? You can literally do sales like all dresses today are $25. All bottoms are 50% off, so on and so forth. Like, don't make it hard on yourself. The inventory has been sitting for months. Why make it hard at this point? Something is better than nothing. I forget who said this. I don't know if it was my accountant or what, but whoever it was, they reiterated to me, this is probably 3 or 4 years ago, making some of your money back is better than making none of your money back. There are so many people who are literally willingly making none of their money back because they've psyched themselves into believing that this inventory is worth the price that I decided to charge for it, and therefore it's just gonna stay here until it sells. You sound crazy, and I hate to say it to you that way, but I don't have any other way to say it. You sound crazy, okay? So move that inventory. Make sure you give yourself a clear line of visibility around how much money is wrapped up in it so you can figure out how to get that money back, okay, friend? All right, so it's Friday and I'm gonna go lay on my couch back there and watch some Netflix. But if you need help moving that inventory, if you're ready to take your business serious and start to learn retail, not just how to buy inventory and where to buy inventory and things like that, but really how to brand, market, and sell that inventory, hit me up, okay? In the description box, I will put a link for you to book a free call with someone on my team. We can talk about the current standing of your business, what's working, what's not, and figure out a plan for you. You can send me a DM on Instagram. We can chat and see what's going on and try to create a plan from there. Yeah, and of course, comment if you have something to say or something to ask. As always, comment, like, subscribe, all those good things. And yeah, that's all I got. Hope you guys have a good day. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what else y'all want me to talk about. What's happening? Tell me what's happening in your business. What's going right? What's going wrong? What's working? What's not? Tell me what you guys need help with so that I can try to be consistent with these YouTube videos. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you in advance. All right. Bye, guys. Talk to you later.